Hi, and welcome to day one of Launching Well, Relationships, Results, and People. I am so excited about spending the next 4 days with you. We've got some fun things planned that will help you put in place a people plan that will make your best launch ever. So we're going to be talking about 4 things this week, and I've got a little graphic I'm going to hold up here for you. This is our focus this week. We are going to be focused on these 4 things. Number one, right up here in the corner, is nurture relationships. We're going to focus on those relationships that matter, the things that we can do to nurture those relationships and make this the best launch ever. Day two, we're going to be talking about inspire results. How can we create a clear bullseye that people know when they've hit it and how to get there? And day three, we're going to focus on engaging your people. We can be all energized and excited at the beginning of the launch, but we got to keep people energized and excited all along the way. So what is the way that they work, and what is the role that they need to play to stay engaged? And our last day, day 4, we are going to talk about celebrating wins. There's a time where we need to just step up on the balcony, take a look at how things are going, take a look at how we're doing as a leader, and take a look at how things are going, what's working, what's not, and then find those things that we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate wins. One of the things I hear over and over from ministry leaders is that we don't celebrate well. We just don't. There's too many needs, too many things to do, and so we move on to the next thing without taking the time to stop and celebrate well. So I am excited that we will be talking about that and all of these fun things. Today we are going to be focusing on nurturing relationships. What are those relationships that matter? You know, people are why we do what we do in ministry. People are also the way we do what we do in ministry. Most of you are not working alone. You've got people that you are working with to make an impact, to make a difference. And so we do this for people, and we do this with people. So relationships really matter. This is a significant conversation to have as you're thinking about starting something new, because it matters. So one of the things that I want you to do is make sure that you download the worksheet. It's in the units tab of the Facebook group. It will also come in your email today when you get your email. Download that worksheet, because there's some fun things that we will be working through today in doing an activity to identify those relationships that matter, and then the strategies that we can use to nurture those relationships. So I'm going to be talking you through the exercise and the activity in our time together today. And I first want to talk about who are the relationships that matter. So we want to list out those key people in our launch that matter the most. So I've given you 3 categories to take a look at. If you don't have the worksheet in front of you, that's okay. Just start thinking through these 3 categories of people that are involved in your launch. Number 1 is those that you serve. Now, this might be clients, it might be people in your congregation or a subset of your congregation. It could be participants in your program. Who are the people that you are serving? Now, you can just think about those people in big chunks of categories. So like you've got this kind of a client, or this kind of a target audience, or this kind of person in the congregation. But what I want you to get to is, what are the names, like individual names of people that will be a part of your launch that matter. So if you're looking at like a youth group for your church, don't just list youth group or youth group volunteers, but who are 2 or 3 key teens that are involved in whatever it is that you're trying to launch, that you could nurture in those relationships. If you've got clients or people in the congregation that you can serve, I want you to think of 2 or 3 people that are in your target audience that you could have a conversation with. Think of those people, individual people of relationships that you could nurture. The second category is those who serve with you. Now, it might be other volunteers who are doing this with you. It also might be other team members. Some of you have staff where you have team members that you're working with, or maybe you're working across teams. So who are those relationships, either across teams or within your team, that really matter the most? List those out, because they matter. Your board, your donors are also key people that fit into this third category that I'm talking about. And those are the people that are maybe not directly involved in whatever that you're launching, but they matter because they have a vested interest in your success. If you're a part of a larger organization, you have a leader, and that leader is vested in your success, but may not be a direct involved in whatever it is that you're launching. You have boards, you have donors. So who are those people that are maybe not directly involved, but are invested in your success? So I want you to think about those three categories. You can think about categories in any different way. What we're trying to get at here is listing out those relationships that you need to nurture. You may be able to brainstorm 20, 30 relationships that really matter in whatever it is that you're trying to launch. And you may have 5 or 6. If you have a large list like 30 or 40 people that are invested in where you're going, people that are involved, I want you to circle maybe the top 5 or 6 people on that list that really matter the most. These are the key relationships that you need to spend time nurturing right now as you're trying to launch something well. As you've got those lists down and you've got your key people down, now what we want to do is talk about where they're at. I don't know about you, but I like to start something new a lot. And so what happens for me is I will jump forward, get inspired, go for it. I'm activator as one of my top 5 strengths. So I'm ready to go and ready to activate. I get halfway down the road and then I look back and there's nobody following me. There's nobody following me. It's because I haven't paid attention to the fact that everybody is at a different place. Everybody needs different information. And so what we need to do is take a look at those lists of people that we just made and go, where are they at? Where do they fit in this thing? What information do they need? And what do they need from me as a leader if I'm going to be able to launch something new? So here we're at. I want to talk with you about 4 key categories of people or relationships that we have when we're trying to do something new. It's called a relationship matrix. And there's 4 different kinds of places that people are at when you're trying to launch something new. Different attitudes they have, different involvement that they want to have in whatever it is that you're launching. And so if you have your worksheet, you're going to see a graph or a matrix that looks like this. And this matrix really helps us to take a look at where are people at in whatever it is that we're launching. I'm going to start up here in this corner over here called the allies. The allies are in your corner. They are excited, they believe in you, and they cannot wait to get started. So if you're in a launch, you want to get them involved early. You want to invite their ideas, you want to include them, you want to recruit them to help find others who can be a part of your launch so they can recruit your volunteers, they can refer people to your program, they can be a voice for whatever it is that you're trying to do and share the vision and the ideas so that you're not the only voice. The second group of people we're going to talk about is the contributors. Now the contributors, they like you and they like your idea, but they're not nearly as invested in moving forward. Maybe it's because they don't have enough capacity, maybe it's because they don't have enough time, or they have a different focus on how to do whatever it is that you're doing. But you want to find a role that they can do. So you want to reframe the conversation to show them what's in it for them. You might offer to help them with something that they're doing in exchange for helping you with your involvement and create a win-win situation for that contributor. The third category is these challengers. The challengers down here, they believe in you, but they have different ideas about how things should be done. They have the potential to make your launch better, so you definitely want to hear them out. You want to engage in conversations with them and see what changes you might be able to move and make in order to get them in your corner. And the last one is the skeptics. The skeptics take on a wait and see attitude. They don't really think maybe what you're doing is going to work. They're kind of skeptical. They are definitely taking a wait and see approach. They usually will offer minimum effort. They find the barriers and they will, put up some obstacles at times in whatever it is that you're doing. But you want to move the skeptics one step closer to getting invested in whatever it is that you're doing, because otherwise they can be a barrier to whatever it is that you're doing. You know, people can help us move forward with our launch and they can actually stall us, especially if that skeptic is a key person in being able to break down some barriers for whatever it is that you're trying to launch. You want to have conversations with that skeptic to move them one step closer. You might not be able to get them to be an ally, but if you can move them into either the challenger or the contributor category, you can get them a little bit more invested in whatever it is that you're doing. You may not in your launch have people in all 4 categories. You might only have in 2 or 3 of the categories. If you've got all skeptics, I'd be a little concerned. But don't assume that you have all allies. That's my biggest mistake. I just I have so much energy that I can have energy for everybody in the room. So they can get all excited and I can assume that I have all allies when I don't always have the allies. And so it really is helpful to take a step back and look at what are the categories that these people fall into. Let's say you don't know. Well, then maybe it's worth having a conversation with them and finding out really where they're at. So I just want to throw out one example as we go forward here of how this might play out. What about like somebody who's starting a youth program, a youth volunteer? This is one example that I know of, a youth volunteer who had been spending a lot of times with teens in the neighborhood that had started coming to the youth group and really saw a great opportunity to be able to launch something on Wednesday nights for between after school and before the youth program started for the neighborhood kids. They were really excited about this program. Now they're going to launch something well. They got to take the time to pay attention to who are the relationships that matter. Now they had an advocate and an ally in the youth pastor. That's always a key win. You want the person that can open the doors or close the doors to whatever you're doing to be in that ally category. If they're not, that's where you need to pause and take the time to make sure that you get them into that ally space before you launch well. Otherwise, you will be hitting roadblocks left and right. So how do you get them into that ally space? Conversations. And once you got that ally, that like youth pastor in the ally space, then it's awesome to start taking a look at, okay, who are the other players? Who are other key volunteers that are involved in the youth ministry that would also be willing to come early on Wednesday nights and participate in a neighborhood program? You name out 2 or 3 of those volunteers and you start having a conversation with them. Now, some of them might think your idea is awesome and fit into that contributor space, but they don't have time or capacity. They can't get off work early enough to be able to do something like that, or maybe they have other plans on Wednesday nights, but they think your idea is great. So what's a different role that they could play? Maybe they could refer other people to your program and find other volunteers that might be willing to contribute to that. You have other people, if you've got space that you've got to work in, you've got people who are taking care of that space. Where do they stand on your lunch? In this case, John was definitely a skeptic. He didn't think that it would work. He thought it was going to be a lot of work for a very little payoff. And that is a conversation that you need to have. Sometimes with skeptics, the only way that they can get involved and get excited about whatever it is that you're launching is to see results. They want to show me the money is their attitude. And so you need to get them invested enough to say, okay, go ahead, do what you're going to do. And then you need to find out what is it that matters most to them, what information matters to them, and how can you get them invested and energized by showing them results. And so these are different ways that you can just take a look at these 4 categories and then find strategies to bring them along. So let's talk strategies. I put a couple of ideas in the comments that go with this video, and then in your worksheet, there'll be 3 ideas. There's lots of different ways that you can come up with strategies for building relationships and nurturing relationships. Once you've got the key people in place and mapped out on your matrix, it'll be amazing how that will just pop up. You'll just have some different ideas that will come to mind, even as you see their name on a piece of paper. It's amazing what comes to mind. But let's talk about 3 specific strategies before we go today. And number 1 that I want to bring up is prayer. It is actually an amazing relationship building strategy, praying for the people that are a part of whatever it is that we're doing. One of the things that I've tried that has been really powerful for me, and I wanted to share with you, is that I pray for the people that are involved in what I'm doing, and I ask God as I'm praying for them to give me a prayer for them and to write that out. And I write it out in my prayer journal, and then I pray that prayer for them every day as we're getting ready to launch. It's amazing what God gives me to pray for them and how a unique individualized prayer from God actually for them has been a really powerful tool at reframing how I think about them and the relationship I'm trying to build with them, and then how the power of the Spirit through our prayers makes an impact on their life as well. So don't underestimate prayer as your number 1 strategy for building and nurturing relationships. The second one is conversation. It's key. It's important to be able to move people along and to recognize that people aren't all going to be as excited as you are about whatever it is that you're going to launch, but how do you ask the questions that can nurture that relationship? One of the questions that you can ask is, hey, what are some of the key concerns that you have? It's a great question for an ally because they're already on board with you and excited and energized about what you're doing. But what is a key question that will just draw out more information from them? You can ask that of any of the 4 kinds of people, kinds of relationships, but it's a great question for your allies. For your challengers, for this to be successful, what do you think needs to happen? That can be a key piece to get involved in, get their ideas out and get them involved in the process. For a contributor, what is the role that you would like to play in the process? Because remember, that contributor is excited and energized about what you're doing, but maybe doesn't have capacity or maybe doesn't have the willingness to get involved. So if they have a role that they get excited about, it can shift things, it can change things. The 4th question I would suggest is, what information do you need from me in the process? And again, all of these questions can be powerful for all of the people that you're nurturing in your relationships, but what information do you need from me can really help you with your skeptic. It shows them that you care about what's important to them. And also, you get the information that you need so that when the results start coming through, you can show the results and move that skeptic more into your corner for whatever it is that you're trying to launch. And the 3rd strategy that I would throw out there that you could do is experiment with something new. Whenever you're doing a launch, it's an opportunity to try new leadership skills, to sharpen your leadership skills. What is one thing that you want to grow in as a leader in the process? Yes, we have results for the people that we're trying to serve. And this is all about nurturing relationships and having results for the people that serve with us. But you as a leader get to grow too in this process. So how is it that you want to grow in this process? One of the ways to get at, like, what is the leadership skill that I want to grow is to think about 3 leaders in your life that have been really influential for you, that have helped you grow as a leader that you really admire. What is it that they do that you really admire? And of all the things that you list out and you brainstorm out that those 3 leaders are doing, which one is an area where you want to grow with this launch that you're doing? Just pick one thing. Don't pick a lot of things to do, because if you try and focus on growing in too many areas at once, you won't grow in any of them. So pick one thing that you would like to experiment with, one thing that you would like to grow in as a leader as you launch into this new thing.